When a billionaire's heart shattered, the untold story of a black girl's sacrifice in the city where dreams collide with nightmares, a billionaire crumbled in front of the world. His heart, once a fortress of wealth and power, lay in shards at his feet, obliterated by a shocking twist that echoed through the dark alleys and glittering high-rises alike. The mysterious disappearance of a black girl named Zuri was the tremor that unleashed the earthquake of agony. As if sewn into the very fabric of the universe, each second turned into an eternity as whispers of betrayal skated through the air like ice. Zuri was a name that danced on the lips of the elite, but in the shadows, she was a muted echo. No one truly understood her, the girl with dreams bigger than the night sky, who glided through life like a wisp of smoke, unseen yet undeniable. Her laughter had a melody that stitched together broken hearts, and now, she was the thread unraveling the wealthiest man in the world. The glitz and glamour masked a hidden truth, and it was combustible. The moment she went missing, just a flicker in the night the world held its breath, the billionaire collapsed in despair. A cacophony of gasps erupted as people gathered outside his towering estate, worry etched on their faces. They murmured in disbelief, wondering how a girl so vibrant could simply vanish. It didn't make sense. Did she know too much? Or was she caught in the web of greed and corruption that enveloped the elite? Her absence was a tempest, wreaking havoc on the city's tranquility. As the hours stretched into days, something unsettling pulsated in the air. Secrets shadowed by shrouds of silence begged to be unearthed, and Zuri's name became a rallying cry for justice. Was she a martyr for the truth? Or had she tangled with something far more dangerous than any of them could imagine? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just when it seemed the billionaire had lost the will to fight, a flicker of hope appeared in the corners of despair, a clue, found in the strangest place, light flickering brightly in the darkest hour. It was an emblem, a symbol of Zuri that nobody had ever paid heed to. A reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures lie not in money but in heart. And with it, the billionaire's journey of redemption and turmoil was about to explode into existence. But the real question remained: who would pay the ultimate price for the truth? The whirlwind of emotions stretched thin, heavy in the air. The billionaire paced in his vast estate, haunted by confusion and a growing sense of dread. He clutched the emblem in his hand, its corners digging into his palm, a reminder of the girl who had unknowingly anchored his world. Each twist and turn of the marble floors beneath him mirrored the chaos swirling in his mind. Zuri, he muttered, her name barely escaping his lips like a fragile prayer. The media had turned her disappearance into a spectacle, but for him, she was real, a beacon of brightness in an otherwise dark existence. The walls were closing in, shadows creeping closer, and he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed from the front door, shattering his thoughts. It was unexpected, cutting through the noise in his mind. He hesitated before opening, a cascade of images flooding his thoughts: police, reporters, the public feeling aflame with anger. But the sight before him was neither of those. Standing on his doorstep was a figure cloaked in a long, dark coat, face half hidden under the brim of a worn hat. "I know what happened to Zuri," the stranger said, voice low but clear, earthy like the autumn leaves just beginning to fall outside. His heart raced. "Who are you?" "Someone who can help," the stranger replied, stepping forward cautiously. "But there's a cost. You must trust me." The billionaire studied the figure, a whirlpool of emotions grappling within him. Desperation clashed with fear, uncertainty gnawing at him. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" The stranger took a deep breath, lifting the brim of the hat to reveal eyes that bore the weight of countless secrets. "Because I was there the night she disappeared. I saw it with my own eyes." It felt like the floor had dropped from under him. What do you mean? What did you see? But the figure shook their head. Not here. We don't have much time. If you want to know, you need to come with me now. The words clawed at his insides. Every instinct screamed to grab a phone, to alert the authorities, but uncertainty stalled him. This was the only lead he had in days, and the urgency in the stranger's voice felt palpable. What's the price? He asked, his voice a rasp of determination. That a smirk tugged at the stranger's lips, a flicker of something calculating in their gaze. It may cost you more than you're willing to pay. The atmosphere thickened with tension. His heart pounded like drums in a distant parade, adrenaline surging through his veins. Suddenly, the door creaked behind him as it swung open wider, the shadows of his home seeming to beckon him back into their depths. He took a step forward, the urgency of the moment overwhelming the walls of his reasoning. Let us go, he finally whispered, not yet prepared for the twists that lay ahead. The pair vanished into the night, and the echoes of whispered secrets lingered behind them, shadows whispering warnings. The ground felt treacherous beneath his feet, each step dragging him deeper into darkness. What awaited him on this path of discovery? A surge of fear washed over him, vibrating through the streets as if the world itself braced for chaos. As they weaved through the city, one thought lanced through his mind like a shooting star: would he find Zuri, or was he drawing closer to his own demise? Just then, a phone buzzed loudly in his pocket, shattering the moment. It was a text from an unknown number. They know about you. Get out while you can. The thrill of hope collided violently with the chill of dread, and with every step, the web tightened. What danger lay beneath the surface? What awaited him as he unleashed the truth within? The city loomed around them, chaotic and unforgiving, darkened windows and shadowy alleys whispering secrets he wasn't ready to hear. The stranger led the way, their heavy coat flapping like wings in the night air. Each heartbeat echoed louder than the last, thudding against the vault of his chest as they navigated the back streets, his thoughts racing alongside him. Where are we going? He managed to ask, his voice hoarse. To a place where the truth lies, the stranger replied without turning. Trust me. Trust. The word sat heavy on his tongue. What did this person know about Zuri? More importantly, what would it cost him to learn it? The streetlights flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows that danced on the concrete like phantoms. He leaned closer, desperate for clarity, but the figure remained infuriatingly vague. As they neared an old warehouse, rust clinging stubbornly to the metal door, the stranger glanced back, their gaze piercing. This is it. Stay close. You won't like what you find. Something in their tone sent ice through his veins. What do you know? He pressed, stepping slightly ahead, but the stranger held up a hand. Not here. They pushed the door open with a creak that echoed into the dank space beyond. A musty smell enveloped him, and caution tingled in his spine. The billion-dollar world he inhabited felt light years away, replaced by this dark domain that smelled of secrets he wasn't sure he was ready to uncover. Inside, the dim light revealed haphazard crates stacked against the walls. A few flickering bulbs buzzed overhead, casting their glow over what looked like remnants of a forgotten place. Graffiti marked the walls, telling stories of lives lived and lost, voices trapped in faded ink. The stranger moved purposefully, guiding him deeper into the shadows. He felt an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. He was used to being in control, but now he was at the mercy of someone shrouded in mystery. The air thickened with anticipation, and he forced himself not to turn back. Why did you really come here? The stranger suddenly asked, stopping with their back turned. Was it for Zuri? Or was it to escape something worse? He swallowed, grappling with the truth of it. Both feelings clawed at him, spilling over one another like oil over water. I came to find her, he replied, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. Did you ever consider that the truth can be darker than your worst fears? The figure turned, revealing the glint of something metallic in their hand. A chill spun through him. What is that? Evidence, they stated grimly. Of what happened the night she disappeared. His legs felt heavy as he drew a breath, his heart pounding in a rapid staccato. "Show me." With a flick of the wrist, the stranger revealed a crumpled photograph of a young girl, innocence radiating from her wide smile. Zuri. But beneath the photograph, his eyes caught a glimpse of something that shattered the moment. A deep crimson stain bled into the edges. "No," he whispered, his breath hitching in his throat. "Brace yourself," the stranger warned, as they thrust the photograph into his shaking hands. "There's more. And it has everything to do with you." Before he could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed, sharp and predatory, breaking the fragile moment. The stranger stiffened, hair rising on the back of his neck. "Time's up," the figure hissed. "We need to move. Fast." Adrenaline surged through him, fear raced beneath his skin. Who was coming? Was Zuri still out there, drawing closer to whatever darkness was closing in around them? With panic rising, he bolted after the stranger. The moment had shifted again, pulling him deeper into uncertainty. How far could he run before he discovered the real cost of this truth? Suddenly, another phone buzzed loudly in his pocket, drawing a bead of cold sweat down his spine. He fished it out and saw another message, this one even simpler yet far more chilling: "You're not safe. They're coming for you." As the figure dashed into the darkness ahead, he felt a rush of urgency. With the weight of the photograph in his palm, one thing was clear: he wasn't just trying to save Zuri anymore. The hunt had begun, and he was the hunter and the hunted. With every breath, he could almost taste the thrill of danger. Would he be overcome by the truth, or could he outsmart the forces gathering? The chase was on, and ahead, shadows lay thick with secrets yet untold. What awaited him in this spiral of deceit? Would he uncover Zuri's fate, or succumb to a fate of his own? He stumbled after the stranger, his heart racing faster than the blurry images surrounding him. The warehouse stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of shadows that seemed to shift with every hurried step. "Where do we go now?" he gasped, struggling to keep up. "Through there." The stranger pointed to a narrow corridor, barely lit. Fear twisted in his gut. Nothing but darkness ahead, pooling like ink. He hesitated, scanning the corners of the room for any sign of danger. But there was no time to question. As they slipped into the darkness, the footsteps behind them grew louder, urgent, almost hungry. He felt the weight of them pressing down on him, a phantom menace lurking just out of sight. They turned a corner, and he collided into the stranger's back, who halted abruptly. "This way." They pushed open a door that groaned in protest, revealing a dusty office filled with old furniture, remnants of lives once lived here. Papers littered the floor, forgotten secrets waiting to be discovered. "Why are we hiding?" he whispered, peeking through a grimy window. He could barely make out the shapes outside, shadowy figures prowling the perimeter of the warehouse, eyes darting like hungry wolves. "Because they will kill us if they find us," came the reply. The calm in the stranger's voice clashed violently with the chaotic thoughts swirling in his mind, a symphony of dread and disbelief. "Who are they?" he demanded, but the stranger's attention was already diverted. "Stay here," they whispered urgently, slipping back out the door. Panic surged through him. "Wait. Don't leave me. Stay." The command sliced through the air. And then they were gone. Left alone, he felt the tension crawl along his skin. The silence pulsed, thick, almost tangible. He could still hear the distant murmur of voices and the shuffle of feet, not just one set, but many. Each noise a reminder that time was running out. Gathering his breath, he tried to focus. Thoughts of Zuri clawed at him, relentless reminders of why he was here. Would he really be strong enough to confront whatever had happened? Just as he decided to follow, he heard a crash, glass shattering, echoing like a clap of thunder. His heart dropped. He had to get out of here. Moving quietly, inching toward the door, he could feel the fear coagulating in his throat. What if they caught him? His hand trembled on the doorknob, hesitating before he pulled it open just a crack. As the door creaked, the light poured in like a spotlight, revealing the stranger grappling with two figures. Shadows clashed against the walls, a fierce dance of struggle. The stranger's movements were swift, but the assailants were relentless, driven by the urgency of violence. "Run!" they shouted, catching a glimpse of him. But he didn't need to be told twice. He slipped out, heart hammering, rushing down the corridor as fast as he could. He stumbled into another room, breathless, frantically searching for a way out. Adrenaline ignited his senses, the sharp smell of metal, the tingle of moisture in the air. Following the wall, he found another door that led outside. Light spilled into the dark alley like salvation, but as he darted out, he froze. Standing across from him was a man, tall and menacing, eyes cold and predatory. "Going somewhere?" the stranger drawled, a smirk curling his lips. Rage and fear intertwined as he prepared to run, but the sound of more footsteps redirected his attention. He was trapped. The distant sound of shouting and chaos poured in from behind him, and he realized there were more of them. He had lost sight of the stranger, and now he was utterly alone, caught between two evils. With nowhere to go but forward, he straightened his spine. Should he fight? Should he flee? Heart pounding, the world around him faded, pulling together into the one question he hadn't wanted to ask: who could he trust in this dark web of lies? And just as he took a step, ready to decide, his phone buzzed again in his pocket. The message lit up the screen, and he felt dread coil tight in his gut. "You're in deeper than you think." The darkness pressed in. Closer, secrets clawing their way to the surface. What had he unleashed by coming here? One thing was clear: the truth was more dangerous than he ever imagined. Would he dive deeper to find it, or run from what awaited him in the shadows? The man was still smirking, arms crossed, taking his time as if savoring every second of the moment. His silhouette loomed larger against the dim light. Panic gripped him, tightening like a vice around his chest, urging him to run, to hide anywhere but here. But before he could move, a growl erupted from behind him. Heavy footfalls surged up the alley. His instinct screamed to bolt, but his feet felt glued to the concrete. The anger in the man's eyes blazed, visible even in the battered light. "Don't let him get away." The command echoed like a death knell, and he spun. It was then the figures from the warehouse, their faces obscured by shadows, glinting blades reflecting the scant light. "Stop!" The predator's voice was sharp, a blade itself, but it didn't cut through the rising terror in his throat. He dashed sideways, heart thundering as he launched himself into the nearest doorway. The metal frame rattled beneath his shoulder as he barreled inside, the place heavy with an oppressive darkness. The air was stale, tinged with the mustiness of forgotten things. He stumbled through the small space and halted, searching frantically. A window, maybe. But the shadows danced here, too, concealing everything: furniture piled against walls, odd shapes jutting out like ghostly fingers. He glanced back at the door. The echo of footsteps was fast closing in, their voices melding in anger as they approached. "They can't find you." The stranger's warning rang in his mind, yet here he stood, cornered and overwhelmed. Then he spotted it, a rickety fire escape ladder, bolted to the wall and nearly lost in the darkness. With adrenaline surging like a tidal wave, he made his way, nearly sliding over scattered debris. He grabbed at the ladder, heart racing as he hoisted himself up. The metal screeched against his weight. Climbing, he could hear the intruders spilling into the room below, their voices a chaotic mix of determination. "Where is he?" a voice barked just a breath away, making him freeze mid-climb. "Check the windows," growled another, and he knew he had seconds, maybe less. He scrambled upward, reaching the top just as they began searching through the clutter below. Peeking through the dust-caked, broken window frame, he studied the alley below. The shadows created a thick curtain, and he couldn't see where the stranger had gone. Panic knotted in his gut. He had to act, there was no choice. With a shaky breath, he pushed the window open. Glass crunched beneath him, giving way as he swung his legs outside. The ground felt miles away as he forced himself to drop onto the rickety fire escape. Thump! He landed hard, a jolt up his legs. Pain shot through his ankle, but the looming threat kept him on his feet. He knew he could never go back. The narrow escape led him to a narrow beam of light filtering from the street. Racing back down, he scanned for the nearest exit, but the alley turned into a catacomb, the city's bowels sprawling before him. The voices grew louder as he pushed out, giving way to the street. He hit the pavement, eyes wide, searching for a way to blend into the crowd. Once outside, he sprinted into the jumble of people, hoping to lose himself among the chaos. Just then, his phone buzzed again, and he fumbled to check it, heart racing as a new message appeared. They're not just after you. Zuri is in danger. His world tipped on its axis. No, 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 he whispered, dread flooding his veins. He pushed through the crush of bodies, eyes scanning for any sign of her, the world blurred, heart pounding furiously with every step, overwhelmed by the frantic realization that he wasn't just running for himself anymore, he was running for her. As he turned the corner, a shadow flickered behind him. He caught a glimpse of familiar eyes peering from within the crowd, and a chill shot down his spine. Were they following him? Was Zuri close or far, in danger or safe? He dashed into a nearby cafe, breathless, and slid into a corner booth, hidden behind a curtain of money and casual conversations. Where are you, Zuri? He murmured, despair creeping in, and just before he could break down, the stranger reappeared at the door, breathless and wild-eyed. We need to talk. Now. The tension thickened, a storm brewing inside of him. Did he dare trust them again? As the door creaked, the question hung heavy in the air: what would he sacrifice for the truth? His choice loomed closer, each heartbeat fueling the urgency. But he had no idea how deep this rabbit hole truly went or who would be left standing when the dust settled. He barely had time to catch his breath before the stranger slipped into the booth, urgency etched on their face. The cafe hummed with chatter, but it felt miles away, a fog wrapping around him. He leaned in, his voice a desperate whisper. What is going on? Are they after Zuri? The stranger's eyes narrowed, steel underneath panic. They're using her. If they think she's close, they won't stop until they find her. We're in deeper than I thought. You need to understand just how dangerous this is. His pulse raced. Tell me what you know. I don't have time for explanations, they said, glancing around as if the very walls could hear them. They come for anyone connected to the operation. You didn't just stumble into this. Zuri is wrapped in it, too. You have to get her out. The recollections of their last conversation flooded him, how Zuri had hesitated when he pressed her for details, her eyes filled with secrets heavier than lead. What is this operation? An underground circle, the stranger replied, voice low. They deal in power, and they're not above manipulation or sacrifice. Zuri's more than collateral, she's a key to something more, something dangerous. Fear clawed at his insides. I can't leave her behind. I have to find her. A shadow crossed the stranger's face. You need to understand they'll come for you, too. You're in their sights now. This isn't just about you anymore, it's about survival. Just then, the door swung open, and his heart froze. A familiar figure stepped inside, scanning the room. His stomach dropped. It was one of the men from the warehouse, the smirk still plastered on his face. Out the back. He hissed, throwing a look toward the stranger, who nodded in understanding. They scrambled out of the booth, moving swiftly but silently. The cafe was alive, oblivious. The man's presence sent a cold wave sweeping over him, the last few encounters with danger echoing in his mind. Would running change anything, or was it just an act of defiance against fate? As they slipped out the back entrance, he caught a glimpse of Zuri's familiar retreating figure down the street. A whirlwind of emotions surged through him: relief, hope, dread. He couldn't lose her. Not now. Zuri! He shouted, his voice ripping through the crowded street, breaths shallow, growing louder as he rushed toward her. She turned, eyes wide. Relief washed over his face, but a second later, it twisted into horror as he noticed the figure that emerged from the shadows behind her, cloaked in menace, a knife gleaming in the fading light. "Get away from her!" he screamed, an instinct driving him forward. Zuri's expression morphed from recognition to confusion, then terror. "What is happening? Get down!" She threw herself to the side, and the attacker lunged. Time slowed. The blade flashed through the air, a serpent striking. He dove, adrenaline cutting through the spectacle around him. The cafe, the normal chatter, even Zuri's startled gasp faded in an instant. The world narrowed to the impending collision, and he crashed into the assailant, sending the two of them sprawling onto the pavement. His heart pounded in his ears as he fought to wrestle the knife from the man's grip. The cold steel bit into his skin, but he didn't care. Each second was a battle for survival. The stranger shouted from a distance. "Get up! Move now!" Zuri cried out, panic spilling from her voice. "No! Don't leave!" With a desperate shove, he finally overpowered the assailant, tossing the knife aside. He grabbed Zuri's arm. "Run! Now!" They took off, ducking into another alley, weaving through the shadows. The heavy footsteps followed, relentless and close. Breathing hard, he kept glancing back, dread clawing at his chest. They turned a corner and skidded to a halt when they stumbled upon a dead end, a grim brick wall rising before them. Panic swelled in his throat. "Think!" he urged, wild-eyed. They were trapped, but not for long. "There." Zuri pointed to a rusted old door affixed to the wall, barely clinging to its hinges. "We can break it." Without thinking, he threw his weight against it. The door creaked ominously but didn't budge. He could hear the footsteps thudding closer, her breath between gasps matching his. "Try again," she shouted. With everything in him, he slammed against the door again. There was a crack, a glimmer of hope. The door finally gave way, splintering open. He hustled them through, tumbling inside a dark hallway, and they fell silent, listening, hearts racing. But the silence was deafening, thick with fear. "What now?" Zuri whispered, the weight of their situation crashing down upon them. He didn't have the answer, but as he steadied his breath, one horrifying thought lingered. Was this only the beginning? In the dark, they could hear the chaos outside, and looming uncertainty whispered promises of something worse yet to come. What awaited them beyond the door? And could they truly trust what lay ahead? The hallway was cloaked in darkness, the air stale and damp. Every breath felt heavier as they pushed deeper inside, past peeling walls and faded graffiti. With only the faintest glimmers of light filtering through cracks, he reached for Zuri's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Stay close," he murmured, trying to mask the rising tide of panic. A sudden crash echoed behind them, followed by shadows flickering against the entrance. They were close. His pulse quickened, every thud of his heart a reminder of how precarious their situation was. "Do you think they saw us?" Zuri asked, her voice quivering, fear spilling into every syllable. "They can't know where we are, yet." He wasn't convinced of his own words. Memories of the attacker surged back. The glint of the knife, Zuri's terrified face, it wouldn't leave him. They moved cautiously, peering into dark side rooms, his instincts screaming at him to stay alert. Just as they turned a corner, a violent thump resonated behind them. The door had been kicked open, a pair of heavy boots thudding against the ground. "Now or never," he whispered, feeling the weight of choice pressing down on them. "What about no time?" He pulled Zuri toward an old wooden door at the end of the hallway, hoping it would lead to an escape. With a push, it swung open, and they tumbled inside, slamming it shut just as footsteps echoed nearby. The room was musty and dim, filled with old crates and boxes stacked high, casting overlapping shadows on the floor. It looked abandoned, yet he sensed they weren't alone. "Do you hear that?" Zuri's whisper cut through the stillness, eyes wide as a realization flickered in their depths. He strained to listen and caught faint murmurs from the opposite side of the room. Something was happening beyond the crates. He wasn't sure if it was the enemies or perhaps someone who could help them. "Listen," he said, kneeling to peer over a crate. The murmur grew clearer, tension binding them in place like a tightrope stretched precariously. "They have to be here. Zuri's too important." The voice was low but filled with urgency, a tone that sent chills down his spine. His heart sank. Why did they need Zuri? What was she entangled in that had attracted this kind of attention? He shared a look with her, questions swirling between them. "We can't stay here," Zuri urged. "Wait," he said, gripping her wrist. "If we go out there, we might walk right into a trap. We need a plan." The whispers barely covered the sudden sound of footsteps approaching, drawing nearer. They had to move. Just as he shifted to suggest a different exit, the door creaked open slightly. Panic shot through him as he realized they were being cornered. "Go!" he shouted, shoving Zuri back into the shadows of the room. He slid behind a stack of crates just as the door swung wide, and two figures stepped inside. The light streamed in behind them, illuminating their dangerous expressions, eyes scanning the room, calculating. "Where are they?" one asked, voice cold and steady. In that moment, he felt Zuri's fear wash over him again. He had to protect her. But how could he in this chaos? Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from outside, shaking the room just as silence fell. "Did you hear that?" one of the figures said, their attention diverted. His instincts kicked in. This was their chance, but he couldn't leave without knowing what was truly at stake for Zuri. "I'm moving," he whispered, looking at Zuri. "Stay low." Before he could slip past, a loud bang erupted from the door, sending cracks rippling through the wood. "They in here!" a voice roared outside. Zuri stepped back, terror etched on her face as realization hit there was no turning back. "Now!" he hissed, adrenaline surging as he dashed toward the door, Zuri following instinctively. But before they could make it through, something sticky wrapped around his ankle, pulling him down. With a desperate grasp, he tried to grab Zuri's hand. "Zuri!" he shouted, panic lacing his voice, but the weight behind him pulled him further down. The last thing he saw was the horror on her face, the realization that they might be torn apart and the darkness closing in. What awaited them on the other side of that door? And what secrets of Zuri's would be revealed as they hurtled further into danger? The world spun as he fell, the shock of his ankle caught in the trap pulling him under. Zuri's terrified scream faded into muffled echoes, replaced by the frantic rhythm of his heart pounding in his ears. Cold, clammy hands gripped his throat, tightening around him like a noose. He thrashed, trying to shake off the bonds of whatever had ensnared him, but panic blurred his thoughts. Then came the sound of a metallic snap, and the room's shadows shifted, the figures moving closer. Air rushed into his lungs like a fierce wind, and instinct kicked in. He had to break free, had to get to Zuri. "Let go of me!" he yelled, struggling against the grip that held him. But the more he fought, the more the darkness closed in, feeding on his fear. The door swung wide under another powerful kick, and the flickering light spilled into the room, illuminating the two figures that stood watching. Their eyes glinted with malice, they seemed almost amused. His gaze flicked to Zuri. She was pressed against the wall, wide-eyed, frozen in place as the fear coursed through her. "Grab her!" one of the men barked, voice biting like gravel. In that instant, adrenaline surged through him. If they touched her, he kicked wildly, managing to twist just enough to free one leg, and with a burst of energy, he lunged forward, desperate to reach Zuri. "Run!" he screamed, his voice hoarse. But the words wove a thread of terror around her, rooting her still. "Zuri, please!" His heart raced as he fought against the invisible chains, feeling the darkness tug at him once again. With a sudden flash, one of the men lunged towards Zuri, and instinct took over. He punched through the last of his restraints and sprang from the floor, crashing against the man just as he neared her. The two tumbled to the ground in a chaotic flurry of arms and legs. "Get out!" He shouted at Zuri again, their lives hanging in the balance. Zuri's eyes brightened with a flicker of resolve. She turned and bolted for the door, heart racing as her feet pounded against the floor. But the second figure positioned himself in her path, trying to cut her off. Without thinking, he speared forward, shoving the other man off him and shoulder-checked the figure blocking Zuri. They both staggered back, surprise twisting across the man's features. "Zuri, now!" He yelled again, his own fear morphing into a shield as he closed the distance between them. She didn't need telling twice. With the slimmest slice of space now opened, she dashed toward the door, nearly colliding with the aged wood. Heart thundering, he resolved to protect her. That was all that mattered. He lunged to her side, grabbing her wrist just as she reached for the knob. Together, they stumbled out into the hallway, visions of hope fleeting but fleetingly beautiful in their grasp. Yet outside, chaos ensued, loud shouts echoed, the clamor of boots trampling on the old wood. They'd have to run, there was no time to think. "Which way?" Zuri gasped, her breaths ragged. "Right." He snapped, pulling her with him as uncertainty clouded the path ahead. Before they could move more than a few steps, a sound boomed above, the ceiling rumbled, and pieces of plaster cascaded down like snow. The world felt like it was caving in, closing hand on their glimmer of hope. "Run!" He shouted again, adrenaline flooding his veins, pushing him forward. They darted down the hallway, shadows creeping against the walls, and just when they thought escape was in reach, an old door swung open to their left, revealing a crumbling stairway leading into darkness. "Should we go?" Zuri hesitated, fear flashing in her eyes that he glanced back down the corridor, footsteps echoing like a war drum, drawing nearer. "We don't have a choice. Trust me." They plunged into the darkness, hearts aligned in desperate hope. What lay below? Would they find safety, or would deeper dangers lurk in the shadows? As they descended, the ground beneath their feet felt uncertain, and every creak made their hearts race faster. Would they reclaim their lives, or would the darkness swallow them whole? The stairs spiraled down into an abyss of uncertainty. With each step, the air grew colder, the silence amplified by their hurried breaths. His eyes strained to catch any flicker of light ahead, but all he could see was unsettling darkness stretching before them. Zuri clutched his hand, her pulse racing against his palm. He could feel her fear radiating through him like a fever. "Stay close," he whispered, though he wasn't sure why he spoke. They both knew that there was nowhere to go but down. As they descended, a dull thud echoed down the hallway above, heavy footsteps pounding as someone pursued them. Panic surged in his chest. There was no time to waste, they needed to reach the bottom before whoever was coming caught up. His feet moved faster, fueled by desperation. "Are you okay?" he asked, glancing back at Zuri. Her pale face illuminated by a sliver of moonlight seeping through a crack far above. Her voice trembled, "I don't know if I can just keep going." His voice came out harsher than he intended. The situation was engulfing them with urgency, and he couldn't let fear drag her down. Suddenly, Zuri stumbled over a loose stone, together they lost balance, falling against the damp wall. He caught himself with a sharp gasp, feeling the chill bite into his skin. He looked at her, eyes wide, heart racing. "We need to keep moving." She nodded, swallowed hard, summoning her resolve. They pushed onward, skipping their way down the steps, aware that time was their enemy now. A crunch above them signaled that their pursuers were gaining speed, and a chill of despair washed over him. Would he even be able to save her? Finally, they reached the bottom, a vast chamber yawned before them. Faint flickers of light illuminated dusty old machinery, long abandoned but still ominous under the weight of history. The metallic stench of rust filled his nostrils. "What is this place?" Zuri murmured, her voice barely a whisper that he shook his head, he had no clue. "We can't stay here." The sound of their footsteps echoed ominously off the stone walls, but he paused to listen. The footsteps that had chased them had stopped. Were they close behind? Or had they finally found refuge? In the back of his mind, a nagging feeling stirred. What if it was a trap? Before he could think it through, a torch flickered to life across the room. Shadows danced, and the visibility increased enough to reveal a massive, rusted gate set deep into the wall. His heart raced. We need to get through that gate. Maybe we can escape. He pulled Zuri towards it, but as they moved, a low chuckle echoed from the far side of the chamber. The two bodies stepped into view, the same figures that had hunted them. They wore unsettling grins, their eyes gleaming with triumph. "He's right," one of them said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You can try to escape, but you're already trapped." Zuri's grip on his arm tightened, fear flashing across her face. He could feel the air around them thicken with tension. The boundaries of hope began to crack. "What do we do?" Zuri breathed, pleading eyes locked onto his, searching for guidance. His mind raced. He couldn't let fear paralyze him. There had to be a way out. "We fight. But before he could finish, the men lunged forward, a ferocity in their movements that sent adrenaline surging through his veins. "Zuri, run!" He shouted again, shoving her toward the gate, buying her time. Pushing forward, he and the attackers collided, fists flying in a frenzy. Pain erupted as one landed a blow, but he shoved past it, focused entirely on protecting Zuri. Behind him, he could hear her scrambling, desperately working at the gate, pulling at the massive rusted handle. Would it budge? Or was this just another dead end? "Please." Her voice shook, and his heart clenched. Just as he felt the grip of the attackers tighten around him, a loud crack boomed through the chamber. The gate splintered under Zuri's efforts. Had she done it? "Zuri, keep going." He grunted, breathless and furious, mirroring her determination in the heat of battle, but as she turned, their eyes locked. A torrent of emotions surged between them, fear, urgency, a hint of defiance. Would they both make it? He couldn't let himself think otherwise. Suddenly, an explosion of sound jolted him. More footsteps, and the daylight seemed to flicker faintly above. There wasn't another second to lose. Would they escape before the walls closed in on them, or would a new horror await just beyond the gate? The moment of truth was upon them, a fragile hope threading through the chaos, waiting to unravel. What lay on the other side of the gate? Would it be salvation or doom? His muscles burned as he fought off the grip of the attackers. Every blow felt like ice, but he pushed through the pain. "Fight, fight!" he screamed inside his mind. Zuri was racing against time on the other side, her life intertwined with his in a way he couldn't shake. As if his heart beat a second for hers, with every ounce of strength, he wrenched himself free momentarily, buying a heartbeat of space, and he lunged towards her. The gate loomed before them, a glimmer of hope in the chaos. "Keep going!" he shouted again, his breath ragged, voice raw. Zuri was giving it everything she had, muscles straining as she pulled on the rusty handle. But the gate didn't budge completely, it jammed with a heartbreaking resistance. "Please!" Zuri's voice cracked, desperation filling the air like smoke. His heart sank, a weight of fear and urgency pushing him to move faster. He turned back to face their attackers. "Get out of the way!" he roared, surging forward with newfound adrenaline. He couldn't let them touch her. Not now. Not ever. He barreled into one, sending the man staggering back against the corroded machinery. "Zuri!" he barked, his voice slicing through the haze. He forced another attacker down low, crashing their weight against the ground. Zuri's silhouette flickered in his vision, an angel fighting against shadows. Then came the sound and echo of the past. The gate shook further, Zuri adjusting her grip, determination shining in her eyes. Just a little more. Their attackers were closing in, but so was the light from beyond that gate, glimmers of freedom trickling through the cracked edges, each inch begging them both to make a break for it. That he grabbed the bottom of the gate, pulling alongside Zuri. "Together!" he urged, squeezing her hand tightly, willing everything they had into that moment, with one last desperate pull, Zuri grunted as the gate creaked and groaned, slowly beginning to give way. The sounds of their assailants grew louder, footsteps closing the gap, the scent of danger thickening in the air. Now! She screamed, pushing against the gate with all her might, and with one mighty heave, the gate finally burst open, splintering free as they tumbled into the light. Sunlight burned into their eyes. The warmth of freedom surged through him as they rolled onto the sidewalk outside, gasping for fresh air that felt foreign. He caught sight of shadows in the distance. Untouchable. They were free. Run! Zuri shouted, yanking on his hand, taking off into the bustling streets where life carried on. They raced through alleys, hearts pounding, the chaos behind them fading until it became only a distant echo. I can't believe we made it. He breathlessly laughed, all fear momentarily replaced by the fire of relief. But Zuri's expression turned solemn. It's not over, she said quietly, glancing back, the reality hitting them. They'll come for us. They're still after me. The exhilaration faded. Shadows tightened in their wake, a warning of danger still lurking. I won't let them get you. I promise, he whispered, gripping her hand tighter, fierce determination igniting the space between them. They turned a corner, ducking into a nearby cafe, breathless. As they quickly found a corner booth, Zuri's eyes flashed with urgency. We need a plan. We can't keep running, we need to fight back. He surveyed the room, heart racing, the energy of survival wrapping around them like a blanket. What do you mean? There is something bigger behind all this, the operation. We need to get proof, stop them. Every word came from a place of strength, and he felt a spark echo within himself. Could they really take a stand? But how? We don't know who they are or where they'll be next. His mind spun with fear, the memories flooding back. Zuri's eyes locked onto his, unwavering. We reach out to others. We expose this. You can get your people involved. Your wealth, your connections, it's the only way to make them listen. His heart surged with renewed purpose. All right. As if the universe bridged the gap, the door creaked open. An elderly woman entered, eyes sweeping across the cafe. Her gaze locked onto Zuri, a small smile creeping onto her face. You two look like you could use a friend. Before he could comprehend what was happening, the old woman strode closer. I know what you're both up against. I've seen it before. Zuri's eyes widened, hope glimmering against the chaos surrounding them. You know about Zuri's kidnapping? The woman nodded, a gleam of understanding in her eyes. And the reason behind it. You'll need help, but you're not alone. Zuri's breath hitched, the promise of hope spilling like sunlight breaking through clouds. Let us team up, he stated fiercely, a resolve swelling like a fire igniting in his veins. We'll bring this shadow down together. The woman smiled. Good. You both deserve a fighting chance. With Zuri by his side, the last barriers of fear crumbled away. They had come too far to back down now, they would reclaim their lives, would shine light in the shadows. This was just the beginning. As they plotted their next move, the weight of uncertainty still loomed, but together they were stronger, ready to rise above the darkness and unearth the truth that would set them free. And the world would listen. Don't miss out on more thrilling stories like this. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next explosive chapter. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make our little community grow. I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think happens next? I love hearing your reactions and theories. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second.